Hello everybody and welcome back to the Beatles Forever. Sorry about the delay that I had in producing another video. I was having trouble with my video software on upgrade, and so it took me a little longer to get the thing started up again, so I apologize. But today we're going to talk about fun facts regarding the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was born during the summer of love, according to George Martin. And the Beatles were out to do something different, and they certainly created a masterpiece with this album. In this video, we're going to learn fun facts about this magical album. Paul came up with the idea on a plane, and he said, "Me and Mal often bantered words about, which led to the rumor that he thought of the name Sgt. Pepper. But I think it would be much more likely that it was me saying, 'Think of names.' We were having our meal, and we had those little packets marked S and P, and Mal said, 'What's that mean?' 'Oh, salt and pepper.' We had a joke about that. So I said Sgt. Pepper, and just to vary it, Sgt. Pepper, salt and pepper, an oral pun, and not mishearing him, but just playing with the words." So what did George, John, and Ringo think of the album? This album was Paul's baby, and that meant that he and George Martin did the majority of the ideas for the album. According to the Playboy interview, John Lennon, he picked the White Album as a superior record. And he said why? Because Paul wanted it to be more a group thing, which really means more Paul. So he never liked that album. It's a record that's full of hits from back in the USSR to Blackbird to Helter Skelter and beyond. It's an undeniable powerhouse of an album. He continued with a swipe at Paul's favorite Beatles record, Sgt. Pepper. "I always preferred it to all the other albums, including Pepper." He was talking about the White Album, "because I thought the music was better. The Pepper myth is bigger, but the music on the White Album is far superior, I think." Ringo, he was bored with the sessions because he didn't have much to do. It was just layering and layering and not being a band. And then according to cheatsheets.com, Ringo pointed that White Album and the Abbey Road as higher on his list because the group was being a band again. And speaking to Parade in 2019, Ringo made the same point. "Pepper was great, but there was a lot of sitting around, and we were like studio guys." And I think Ringo said he learned to play chess during this time, so it showed he didn't have very much to do. And then George said in the Cheat Sheets article that he wasn't nuts about spending 5 months in the studio making Sgt. Pepper. "We weren't allowed to play as a band so much." And then he said in the Beatles anthology, it became an assembly process, just little parts and then overdubbing. And George Harrison thought that they were going in to make the next record. And then Paul kept mentioning his idea about them being a fictitious band, which George said didn't interest him. And while waiting around to record the guitar part on the song, George found himself with nothing to do. A lot of the time, it ended up with just Paul playing the piano and Ringo keeping the tempo. For me, it became a bit tiring and a bit boring. So what were the different instruments that the Beatles played on the album? Well, Paul played the grand piano on the song A Day in the Life, and Paul played the Lowry organ in Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Ringo was drumming A Day of the Life, and it's been described as one of his most innovative drum parts on record. And George Martin played the harpsichord in Fixing a Hole, and George Martin also played the harmonium on Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. George Harrison played a sitar, a tambura, and a swarmadal, all Indian instruments. And John played a Hammond organ. And then, besides playing drums, Ringo played congas, tambourine, and tubular bells. So that's pretty interesting. The suits for the Sgt. Pepper. The suits were made by Noel Howard. And the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper costumes were adorned with an array of British Army rank insignia, patches, and medals. All of the members of the Fab Four wore officers' fringe epaulets, intermingled with a variety of other ranks insignias. Paul didn't want his uniform touched after the Sgt. Pepper thing went away, and Ringo lost his in a house fire, and George, he brought his uniform out a few times after the Beatle years. And what about the cover for Sgt. Pepper's? Paul said that in order to get into the characters Sgt. Pepper, they had to figure out who their heroes were, who the character would admire. And then they made out a list, and once they had that list, they had to write a letter asking permission to use their hero's likeness on the cover. And who didn't want to have their picture on there? But the label made the Beatles right to each people appearing on the cover, and prior to granting approval, Mae West responded by asking, "What would I be doing in a Lonely Arts Club?" So she had a good point there, but the Beatles personally wrote her explaining that they were all fans, and she agreed to let them use her image. The Bowery Boy star Leo Gorcey declined after requesting $400. He was eventually blocked out by a painted-on palm tree. I don't really think he declined. I think he was more rejected after he asked for money. And then Shirley Temple wanted to hear the album first before committing, so I think she got in, though. And then John had suggestions that were rejected: Adolf Hitler, Jesus Christ, and Mahatma Gandhi. So the next thing is there's inanimate objects used on the cover, which I didn't really realize, but in the number 11 position is a Vargas girl. Having made a name for himself designing posters for the Ziegfeld Follies that appeared on Broadway across the 1910s to the 30s, Peruvian painter Joaquin Alberto Vargas y Chavez went on to create a series of paintings of pinups, and they're known as the Varga Girls. And they had exposure in Esquire magazine during the 40s. And sometimes they would appear in paintings on World War II fighter jets. And then on number 34 position, the hairdresser's wax dummy number 1. One of the two wax dummies borrowed from a local hairdresser, and this one wears a striped red and yellow hat, while its counterpart, number 36, wears a green bonnet. Number 38, the Petty Girl number 1, designed by George Petty, like the Vargas Girls. Petty Girls were pinup paintings that appeared in Esquire between 1933 and 1956, and they also found a home in the front of the World War II fighter jets, notably on the B-17 fighter jet nicknamed Memphis Belle. And then number 55 is a Petty Girl number 2. The Petty Girl was one of the series paintings by George Petty. And then 56, 57, 59, and 60 were wax models of the Beatles. In a perfectly postmodern touch, the Beatles included wax models of their former Beatlemania-era selves, looking on at their modern incarnation in full military psychedelic regalia. The models of John, number 57, Paul was number 60, George, number 56, and Ringo, number 59. They were borrowed from the Madame Tussauds for the Sgt. Pepper's photo shoot. The position of number 72 was a cloth grandmother figure created by Jan Hayworth, then the wife of Peter Blake and co-creator of the Sgt. Pepper album cover. This cloth grandmother doll was one of a number of stuffed artwork she made from textiles. Number 74 was a Mexican Tree of Life candlestick. Traditionally, Mexican Tree of Life sculptures came from Metepec in the state of Mexico and depicted scenes from the Bible. The one on the Sgt. Pepper album cover is also a candlestick. Number 75 is a television set. If the Tree of Life candlestick represented a more traditional way of telling a story, the portable TV9-306YB Sony television set was a wholly modern storytelling apparatus in 1967. Okay, the numbers of 76, 77, and 78 were stone figures, along with the stone figure that can be seen below the feet of Shirley Temple doll number 73. The stone figure of a girl number 76 was one of a number of statues that John Lennon and George Harrison brought from their homes for the inclusion on the cover, and the most prominent of these, best positioned to the right of the bass drum, came from Lennon's house in Kenwood in Weybridge, where he lived from 1964 to 1969. And number 79 was a trophy. It is said that the trophy nestling in the crook of the L of the Beatles was a swimming trophy awarded to John Lennon when he was a child. I didn't even realize that. That was pretty neat. Number 80 is a Lakshmi doll. I hope I said that right. Positioned front and center of the album, the doll of the Lakshmi, the Indian goddess of wealth, fortune, and prosperity. Number 81 was the Sgt. Pepper drum skin. This Sgt. Pepper drum skin shows one of the two designs by Joe F. Grave, a fairground artist. His second design used more modern lettering and was attached to the other side of the bass drum, giving the group two options during their photo shoot. Number 82, the Hookah, originally Originating from India, the hookah is a tobacco smoking instrument designed so that the smoke is filtered through a water basin being inhaled. Its inclusion on the Sgt. Pepper's album was a nod to both George Harrison's love of India and John Lennon's love of Lewis Carroll, whose Caterpillar and Alice in Wonderland he smokes a hookah. Number 83, A Velvet Snake. It's placed beneath Sonny Liston, who was number 54. It's a purple velvet snake and most likely to have been one of Jan Haworth's cloth designs. Number 84, Fusaki Statue, identifiable by its oversized head and ears. The Fusaki doll originates from Japan and is said to bring good luck. Number 85, Stone Figure of Snow White. Just in front of the Fusaki doll, number 84, is a statue of Snow White from Grimm's Fairy Tales. Number 86 is a garden gnome. Barely visible to the left of the bee in the Beatles is a typical garden gnome, the likes of which originated in 19th century Germany. Number 87, and the last one on the list, is the tuba. Like the French horn, trumpet, or corgan analis, and the flute held by each individual Beatle, the tuba is a mainstay of the brass band instrumentation. So what are the 5 best songs from Sgt. Pepper? Well, this is just my opinion. I don't know. Everybody's probably has their own. The first of the songs, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, John Lennon said that this song wasn't inspired by LSD. It was by his son Julian. Julian had come home with a painting that he made of his friend Lucy O'Donnell, a classmate at the Heath House Nursery School. And this is the truth. My son came home with a drawing and showed me this strange-looking woman flying around, he said during an appearance on the Dick Cavett Show in 1971. I said, what is it? And Julian said, it's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And I thought, that's beautiful. And I immediately wrote a song about it. And according to Wikipedia, Harrison later identified Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds as one of the few songs he liked from Sgt. Pepper, and he expressed satisfaction with his Indian-inspired contributions. And for his part, Lennon expressed disappointment with the Beatles' arrangement of the recording, complaining that inadequate time was taken to fully develop his initial idea for the song. And he also said that he didn't sing it very well. I was so nervous I couldn't sing, he told the journalist Ray Connolly, but I liked the lyrics. And then Paul said that they were going for an effect like Alice in Wonderland, and the song does have that surreal, dreamy feel to it. The next song that I thought was a good one for this album was Getting Better. The next song that I chose was Getting Better. Surprisingly, this song came from a phrase that their temporary drummer, Jimmy Nichols, used to say all the time. The Beatles liked this song because all of them contributed to the song, and that's cool. Paul was optimistic one with the lines, it's getting better all the time, and the pessimism of John Lennon, who chimes in, it can't get much worse. And John admits it was his line about being cruel to his woman, and he said he didn't know how to communicate, and he would hit women, and he would fight with guys when he disagreed with them. He said he learned not to be violent and that it was something he wasn't proud of in his early days. The song's very catchy and makes you want to sing along to it. Next song that I chose was A Day in the Life, and this is one of the most popular songs on the album, with John coming up with the most of the song. And John said, Paul and I definitely worked together, especially on A Day in the Life. The way we wrote it, a lot of the time, you write the good bit, and then that was easy, like I read the news today or whatever it was, and then you get stuck and then it got hard. Instead of carrying on, you just drop it. Then we would meet each other and I would sing half and he would be inspired to write the next bit and vice versa. He was a bit shy about it because I think he thought it was already a good song. So we were going to do it in his room at the piano, and he said, should we do this? And yeah, let's do that. According to Lennon, the inspiration for the first 2 verses was the death of Tara Brown, the 21-year-old heir to the Guinness fortune, who crashed his car on the 18th of December, 1966. And Brown was a friend of Lennon and McCartney. The song is epic and a masterpiece. Next on the list, Lovely Rita Meter Maid. In his comments to the biographer Barry Miles, McCartney refuted the idea that this episode inspired the song. It wasn't based on a real person. I think it was more a question of coincidence. I didn't think, wow, that woman gave me a ticket, I'll write a song about her. It never happened like that. Author John Wynne writes that McCartney's inspiration came from hearing the term meter maid, after which he began writing the song when he was visiting his brother in Liverpool. I like the old-fashioned sound to the song, and the way the song begins with the ahs of the vocals. It sounded like the Beatles had fun recording it, using different vocal sounds and playing a paper-covered comb. Only Paul could write an infectious song like this. It's perfect. And then both John and Paul had contributions to that song. Next is Fixing a Hole. I had read that this song was about fixing a hole in the roof of a barn that Paul had in Scotland, but that wasn't so. He may have done things like that after marrying his girlfriend Linda, but not at the time he wrote the song. This song was inspired by Pot, of all things. Fixing a Hole explored the joys of allowing one's mind to wander and the freedom of not being told what to do. And then Paul said, it was the idea of me wanting to be on my own now, able to do what I want. If I want, I'll paint the room in a colorful way. And I was living now pretty much on my own in Cavendish Avenue and enjoying my freedom and my new home and the salonness of it. It was pretty much my song, as I recall. I like the double meaning of, if I'm wrong, I'm right, where I belong. And the song has a dreamy sound to it. It makes you feel calm just to hear the song, and I like the different instruments that they used in it. The album that influenced Sgt. Pepper, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, intimidated the Beatles, and this was their answer to it. This album, Sgt. Pepper, was a hit from the start. Sgt. Pepper was an enormous chart hit. It spent 27 weeks at the top of the UK album chart, 15 weeks at the top of the US, and also won 4 Grammys in 1968, including Album of the Year, the first rock record to do that, and the album remains one of the best-selling of all time. Sgt. Pepper was the first concept album. The Beatles were tired of touring and not being able to hear what they were playing or singing, and they decided to retreat to the studio and just have fun, creating innovative sounds and songs. And it's a fun album with great songs, and it feels colorful from the album cover to the songs themselves. A Beatle fan will always rank this album high, and with good reason. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, if you could give it a like, that would be great. And if you haven't subscribed, if you could do that, that would be wonderful too. And I hope everybody's been having a good day. And tune in again soon to the Beatles Forever. Thank you. Bye.